What's up guys, Headphones Neil here, back with my final review for my MCU watch-through from the perspective of just the MCU leaders, notably Iron Man and Captain America. So, I'll start it off by giving my order of the watch-through of the films, and then my general thoughts and overall idea of what I had by watching it this way. So, my watch-through order was Iron Man, Iron Man 2, The Avengers, Captain America, the first Avenger, Iron Man 3, Captain America Winter Soldier, Avengers Age of Ultron, Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. So, in watching it this way, I found that this presented the most straightforward and direct path of watching the films and getting the most complete story for these phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They do present some stories that require more information and backstories, but in watching it this way, I found a direct parallel to the Star Wars 9-film trilogy. So, while the MCU has 10 films, Avengers Infinity and Infinity War and Endgame are kind of two parts of the same film. So basically, the number of films are in parity with the Star Wars 9-film franchise, and the extra storylines that you don't have or need more information on kind of create the parallel with these Star Wars Legends or Star Wars Expanded Universe thing, where you do have more stories in the back end that fill in the blanks for information that's missing. So, for example, when you have the backstory for Thor and some of the events there on how Thor knows Dr. Selvig and Jane, some of the backstories for Black Panther and why Wakanda is so important in this Marvel Cinematic Universe, the backstory for the Guardians of the Galaxy and how Quill and Gamora meet. So things like that do need to get filled in, and then also things like some of the Infinity Stones. So the way I watched it, we really only get to see the Tesseract and the Mind Stone, but the rest of the stones don't actually really show up in this watch through. So when Thor says these two stones have shown up, or this is weird that 4 of the stones have shown up so close to each other, you kind of wonder, well, okay, what happened to the rest of them? So that's how that's where the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe comes into play. So, in watching it this way, I found that it was still a complete storyline, very well done, very thought through. So a lot of storylines were hashed out and fleshed out throughout the series, and it does one thing better than, or it felt a lot more complete and tightened as far as the script goes. More so than what we see in the Star Wars universe. So, while in Star Wars we do get, episodes 4, 5, and 6, and then the rest of the films are the prequels are kind of retconning some of the backstory, and then the sequels are kind of rounding out the story. It felt more like just, in side-by-side comparison, it feels more like it's just getting it done. For me, I still enjoy the Star Wars movies more just because that's more my cup of tea, but in watching the Marvel films in the order in which they're presented, rather more so than just the release date, you see that there's a lot of planning going on in the films, and that the stories are so tight and intertwined that it works out very, very well. And then also the other thing that stood out to me watching it this way was it felt kind of strange in the Howard Stark character, because it felt like they had a different actor for a different time frame, but only a couple of them kind of looked similar, notably in Endgame when Tony and Steve go back in time to get the Tesseract, that version, and then the version earlier in the film where we have an older Howard Stark kind of looks similar, but then when we compare him to the Howard Stark in Captain America, the first Avenger, it's totally different, or he looks completely different. So I tried to age him up mentally in my head, and I had a hard time doing it. Doesn't mean it wasn't poorly done, but it was just a hard thing for me to grasp. So that kind of gets nitpicky. So things like that do stand out as well. So I'm not saying that it's perfect by any means, but when you do watch the films, I would recommend watching them at least in this order, and watching the rest in the scope of another Star Wars comparison as a Star Wars story. So, for example, the Thor trilogy, Guardians of the Galaxy, Black Panther, I think, and then also the Ant-Man film. So, and then also Spider-Man. Actually, now that I think about it, there's a lot of films that expand on the characters outside of just the main film. So, you do have the Tony Stark trilogy, the Captain America trilogy, and then the Avengers tetralogy. So while watching them in their individual specific orders, probably Avengers and Iron Man probably hold up the best. Captain America holds up less on its own and more in the grand scheme of things once you get into the Winter Soldier and Civil War, because it does start intertwining with the rest of the universe. But it doesn't mean they're bad films, it's just that they stand out less on their own than with the rest of the films, while Iron Man definitely holds up a lot on its own. You do have bits and pieces that don't hold up, like when Tony talks about the memories of the wormhole from the Avengers, and then towards the end when you start getting into more stuff with S.H.I.E.L.D. and Samuel Jackson as the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all of that. So things like that provide an up and down that are don't necessarily hold up on their own. So it's one of those things going into the future, let's say 30 or 40 years down the line, as far as the films holding up, it's going to be one of those things where the films would hold up, but they would still need to come with a caveat of watching them in the scope of the entire cinematic universe, from Iron Man 1 all the way down through into Avengers Endgame, rather than just films on their own, and then intertwining the rest of the cinematic films as well. So that's all there is for that. So I kind of enjoyed this particular watch through. I haven't really done this kind of watch through since the films came out. I kind of really only watched them as they came out, and then went into the rest of the new films as they came out. So I kind of enjoyed it, and I can see why these films hold up so well and why people enjoy them. So that's all there is for this particular review. So if you want to get in touch with me, you can find me on Twitter at PatelN01. You can find the website at PatelN01.com for past episodes, subscription links, and all that good stuff. And of course, you can now support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/PatelN01, where you can get access, or not only support the show, but also get access to upcoming content that I have scheduled that is exclusive for patrons only. So I have listed a couple of the upcoming reviews, and actually I think I only have one now at the moment, but and then one other one coming soon as well, so look out for those. And then of course the YouTube channel is youtube.com/PatelN01 for Android app reviews, gameplay videos on my Android device, and all of that good stuff. But thanks for tuning into this particular episode, and until next time.